pregnant orangutan came to the zookeeper to help her give birth. No one expected what the keeper did. The air in the primate wing usually smelled of damp earth and sweet fruit, but that morning it smelled like an agonizing weight. It was a rainy Tuesday afternoon, the kind of day Emily Donovan preferred, with the gray sky hanging low over the city and the rhythmic, hypnotic drumming of rain against the skylights of the Regenstein Center, creating a heavy, atmospheric hush. Inside, the chaotic symphony of the zoo had fallen into a focused, reverent silence. Ruby, a 15-year-old orangutan in the final stages of a difficult pregnancy, wasn't nesting in the high hammocks as her instincts dictated. Instead, she was pacing the floor near the keeper's gate, her long, amber-colored hair matted with sweat and her breaths coming in ragged, shallow bursts. When the pregnant orangutan came to the zookeeper to help her give birth, no one expected what the keeper did next. A decision that would blur the lines between species and leave the entire veterinary team in a state of shock, clutching their radios with trembling hands. What happens when a wild animal decides that human intervention is her only hope for survival? We expected Ruby to seek the privacy of her nest when her labor began today. Instead, we witnessed a biological surrender so profound it challenges everything we know about primate trust and maternal instinct. Watch how this mother's desperate plea led to a moment of interspecies midwifery that left the entire zoo in tears. Before we dive into this incredible, heart-wrenching story of life and survival, please take a second to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Your support allows us to keep sharing these powerful stories of the unbreakable bonds of the animal kingdom. Ring that bell so you never miss an update. Emily had been a lead zookeeper for nearly 5 years, and she had seen just about everything. She knew the distinct personalities of every ape in her care better than she knew some of her own cousins. She knew that Kobe, the soulful, gentle patriarch of the neighboring gorilla troop, was watching the commotion through the mesh with a heavy brow, his jagged scar on his left palm visible as he gripped the enclosure ropes in empathetic distress. But Ruby was Emily's closest bond, a creature of solemn intelligence who had often shared quiet mornings with Emily, pressing her palm against the glass in a silent greeting. Today, the atmosphere grew heavy, charged with a static that made the hair on Emily's arms stand up. Ruby wasn't just in labor, she was in a state of terminal exhaustion. Her dark, soulful eyes were fixed on Emily, and every time a contraction hit, she reached through the bars, her leathery hand searching for Emily's fingers with a desperate strength. It started with a sound, a low, rhythmic whimpering that Emily had never heard from Ruby before. Emily had been in the back enrichment room, preparing burlap sacks filled with wood wool and raisins, when the monitors picked up Ruby's erratic movement. Usually, orangutans are fiercely private during birth, retreating into the highest reaches of their canopy to hide their vulnerability. But Ruby was pressing her swollen abdomen against the cold steel mesh, looking directly at the medical kit Emily had left on the cart. The palpable tension in the air was suffocating. "James, she's not nesting. She's calling for me," Emily shouted into her radio, her voice steady but tight. "I think the baby is malpositioned. She's not just in labor, she's in a panic." James, the head keeper, responded from the observation deck with a voice full of caution. "The protocol says we stay out unless it's a confirmed life threat, Emily. If you go in there during an active birth, you risk the mother's stress levels spiking, or worse, she could reject the infant because of the human scent." But Emily looked at Ruby's face. The orangutan wasn't acting like a wild animal. She was acting like a mother who knew her child was in danger. Emily did the one thing no one expected. She ignored the safety protocol, signaled for James to override the electronic gate locks, and stepped into the enclosure without a tranquilizer or a protective barrier. As Emily knelt in the straw, the shocking moment occurred. Ruby didn't retreat or vocalize an alarm call. She sat down, leaned her heavy back against Emily's chest, and took Emily's hand, placing it directly onto her shivering, distended stomach. She was inviting Emily to be her midwife, surrendering her wild autonomy for a chance at a legacy. The controlled chaos of the emergency response followed immediately. Dr. Williams arrived at the glass, his face grim. "Emily, be extremely careful. If she has a sudden contraction and panics, she has the strength to break your ribs," he warned through the intercom. "But her respiration is through the roof. We need a visual on that baby's vitals." Through the mesh, James passed a portable ultrasound wand. With Ruby's permission, a soft, consenting grunt that sounded almost like a sigh, Emily moved the wand over the damp amber fur. The green line on the monitor was a mess of jagged peaks and valleys. "The baby is in distress," Dr. Williams barked. "Atrial fibrillation in utero. The heart is quivering. We need to get that baby out in the next 10 minutes, or we lose them both to total organ failure." Ruby seemed to understand the gravity. She gripped Emily's hand so hard the jagged scar on Emily's own palm, a mark from a previous rescue years ago, began to throb. The next hour was a battle for every single second. The room went deathly silent except for the rhythmic drumming of the rain and the frantic beeping of the monitor. "I can see the head, but he's stuck. He's breached the canal, but he's not progressing," Emily whispered, her voice cracking as tears blurred her vision. "Ruby, you have to push. You have to trust me." In a moment of interspecies empathy that left the staff at the glass breathless, Emily began to mimic the breathing patterns she wanted Ruby to follow. Deep, rhythmic, lung-filling inhalations. Ruby locked eyes with her, mirrored the breath with a haunting precision, and with one final, shuddering heave that drained the last of her energy, the infant was born. But the silence that followed was terrifying. The baby was limp, slick, and a devastating shade of blue. He wasn't crying. He wasn't moving. He's not breathing. "James, get the neonatal resuscitation kit," Emily shouted. She didn't wait for the team to enter. She cleared the infant's tiny airway with her own fingers, rubbing his chest with a piece of rough burlap to stimulate the lungs and jumpstart his nervous system. "He's in cardiac arrest," Dr. Williams announced from the gate, his eyes glued to the portable screen. "Emily, you have to perform manual compressions. 2 fingers, very light pressure. If you're too hard, you'll crush the sternum." Emily looked at Ruby, who was watching with a glassy, distant gaze, her strength completely spent, her head resting on Emily's shoulder. Emily began the compressions. 1, 2, 3. Breathe. Suddenly, a flatline tone from the portable monitor filled the room, a high-pitched wail that felt like a death knell. Emily felt the world go cold. "Don't you dare," she whispered to the tiny bundle. "Ruby asked me to help. I am not letting you go." After what felt like an eternity of silence, a tiny, jagged gasp broke the air. The monitor began to beep, weakly at first, a stuttering rhythm, then steady. Beep, beep. The baby orangutan let out a high-pitched, thin cry of life. Ruby immediately reached out with a trembling hand, and Emily placed the terrifyingly light infant onto her mother's chest. The blue tint faded into a healthy, vibrant glow, as oxygen finally reached his blood. The recovery was a roller coaster of technical challenges and emotional breakthroughs. For 2 weeks, the infant, named Bodhi, had to receive supplemental oxygen in a specialized incubator just outside Ruby's reach. Every day, Ruby would wait at the gate for Emily. She wouldn't let the vets touch the baby, but she would willingly hand Bodhi to Emily through the bars for his hourly checkups. She trusted the human who had sat in the straw with her during her darkest hour. Emily had to hide Ruby's postnatal vitamins and heart medications in tiny drops of sweetened formula, ensuring the mother stayed strong enough to nurse her miracle son. Exactly a month after the incident, the rain was falling again, a soft tapping on the skylights that finally felt like a melody of peace. It was time for the final medical clearance. Emily watched through the glass as Ruby sat in her high hammock, cradling Bodhi with a tenderness that defied words. Kobe, the soulful patriarch from the neighboring enclosure, was watching them too, his scarred palm pressed against the mesh in a silent show of respect. Ruby climbed down from the heights, walked slowly to the glass where Emily was standing, and did something that left the keepers in tears. She took Bodhi's tiny, leathery hand and pressed it against the glass, right where Emily's hand was resting. It was a thank you that transcended biology and language. It was a bond forged in the fire of a crisis, an acknowledgement that the mother's shocking decision to ask for help had been the only thing that saved her son's life. Emily realized then that she hadn't just performed a medical procedure, she had witnessed the cognitive depth of a creature who knew that love sometimes means letting someone else take the lead. The desolate refuge of the enclosure was now a palace of new life. As the sun finally began to break through the gray Tuesday clouds, Emily watched the two of them huddled together in the golden light. The chaotic symphony of the zoo was back, and the steady, healthy beat of Bodhi's heart was the most beautiful sound Emily had ever heard. If you enjoyed this emotional journey of survival and the incredible bond between Ruby and Emily, please don't forget to hit the like button. It really helps us share these stories of animal empathy and the miracles of nature with the world. And if you want to see more heartwarming rescues and animal reunions, make sure to subscribe to the channel and ring the bell so you never miss an update. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video as we continue to explore the unbreakable bonds of the animal kingdom.